everyone, and welcome to our session, Data Tools, Strategies, and Skills for Non-Experts. My name is Emily Jarvis, and I'm the Senior Manager for Events here at GovLoop, and today I have the added pleasure of also being your moderator, so thanks so much for joining me. And a special thank you to our sponsors at Pure Storage and Denodo for helping us put on this session today. So let's get right into it because data is the foundation of today's most transformative technologies, from AI and automation to digital services. But many government agencies still face a gap: how to become more data centric when specialized talent is limited. The solution can often be smarter tools, accessible technology, and targeted upskilling that empower more employees to confidently work with data. So today, our experts will share how agencies can close that data skills gap and build a stronger, more agile workforce. But before we get into all of that, I do have a few housekeeping items to go over. First things first, we have some great resources available for you on the console under that resources button along the bottom panel. This is also where you can see your speakers and learn a little bit more about them. So make sure you check that out. If you need access to that closed captioning feature, just look for that show captions icon along the bottom right-hand side of the panel. And of course, we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message through that Q&A tab and my colleague will get you all sorted out. You can use that same tab to submit questions to our speakers, and we want your questions, so don't you dare be shy. Put your questions in early and often. You can also chat with your fellow Govies using that chat button in the bottom panel. And finally, we are recording this training, so check your inboxes tomorrow because we'll email you a link so you can watch the entire session on demand. All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let me introduce you to our speakers. Joining us, we have Dr. Melissa Cummins, who is the Deputy Director and Chief Data Officer for the Office of Planning and Data Governance for the Houston Police Department. We also have Stephanie Garland, who's the Director of Data Literacy for the state of Maryland, Kylie Graves, who's the Director of Data Policy and Communication for Tennessee's Commission on Children and Youth, Joe Kirby, who's a data manager in the Office of Administration in the Office of Data Analytics within the state of Missouri, Jim Weaver, who's a National Security Strategy Advisor for U.S. Public Sector SLED at Pure Storage, and last but certainly not least, Terry Dorsey, who's the Senior Data Architect and Evangelist for North America at Denodo. Thank you all so much for being with us today. And to better understand each of our speakers' perspectives on data and data literacy, I sat down for one-on-one interviews with each of them. Here are those stories. Here to talk about all things data is Dr. Melissa Cummins, who is the Deputy Director and Chief Data Officer in the Office of Planning and Data Governance for the Houston Police Department. Dr. Cummins, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning.
All right, so lay the groundwork for me because data is an enormous topic. So I want to break it down a little bit and focus on data literacy first, because obviously without data literacy, actually optimizing and using data can be a little bit more difficult. So talk to me a little bit about what data literacy looks like for the Houston Police Department.
So within HPD, I think successful data literacy is that everyone at every rank in every classification has some basic understanding of the data we collect and how it can inform their day-to-day operation. They understand that when they're taking an offense report, that those data elements can help us, with the investigation. They understand that it can help us improve our performance or response to call for service. And it's more than an exercise; it's more than a documentation. They understand where they are in the cycle of collecting, compiling, using, and applying sort of data within policing.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So The goal and the aim makes perfect sense, but sometimes achieving that can be difficult. So, where are agencies, and this is not your specific, but where do you see folks falling short when it comes to that data literacy piece?
I think we've struggled with this as well, but I think the most common challenge is finding the right strike of balance between flexibility and consistency. So it tends to be with operational data that you do the best you can, but it tends to sort of be a secondhand thought, right? So if it can't be perfect, a data analyst is going to say, oh, well, you're limited in your ability to use it, or the analysis is flawed in some way. And I think an agency has to accept that where they are in terms of that data collection, they can make steps to improve the process. They can make steps to identify gaps or limitations to how they should be using their data if it isn't of a high quality. But it's finding that flexibility. True folks from an analytic background or folks with data management a background from a DEMBOK and classical sort of methodology, um, we tend to be a very rigid bunch. We want to follow steps 1, 2, 3, and agencies will be more engaged or more likely to participate in data exercises if it meets them where they are.
That makes a whole lot of sense. So, if folks are listening to this and they're saying, you know what, we do have these gaps and we do want to meet people where they are, what strategies should they employ to work towards that goal?
So I think the first thing is to do a discovery, to do an assessment. When I started in this position, I had a lot of knowledge about the data that we had and how I was using the data, but I really had to beef up on how others were using the data or not using the data. Its availability doesn't automatically mean that folks can understand or are applying or interpret it properly. So those traditional sort of discovery steps, I think, are important. Identifying a group of folks, however big or small, to lead the effort is really important. Someone needs to own the leadership role of starting to have conversations about the importance of data, identifying those opportunities when they arise operationally, saying, I was able to conduct this analysis, but if I had this, right, we would be able to say this. So next time, here's a tool that we're going to use to collect this data more intelligently. But it doesn't add to the workload, but it certainly supports where we're going. Um, in policing, there's been a ton of change over the past 5 to 10 years. And with that change comes a lot of changes in priority, changes in focus, shifts in manpower, a lot of loss or retirement, especially after COVID and in tight budget situations now. And you can lose a lot of experience and knowledge about data and data archives. And so making sure that you have documentation to help you onboard new analysts who have fresh eyes, but maybe not the historical understanding of how that data is used or procedural understanding of how it's collected within sort of law enforcement process is important. And moving at the pace that your agency can support. Data is the most important thing to me, but it's not necessarily the most important thing for the agency day after day. And so finding ways to push forward, both in conversation and culture, but also in documentation and process when you're, working more to the side in support of the agency.
Gotcha. Data is the most important thing to me too. So we're right there together. You mentioned tools here a second ago, and you don't need to get into specific names if you don't want to, but what are some kind of tooling or platform ideas that can make data more accessible across teams?
So I've seen a huge expansion in the accessibility of these tools, the availability, and the applicability, right, of these tools within the government space over the past probably 5 years. What I would say is, again, very much like your data strategy, meet your agency where you are. Don't invest in the latest, greatest, next tool if your agency doesn't value the result, or if your data is not good enough to use once that data has been placed into your tool. So I would say building a strong foundation, understanding your data, and then using tools that make sense and meet the skill levels of your employees. We were an Excel shop for a very, very long time, and we certainly have not moved exclusively away from Excel. It's a tool that's available, and we're going to use that plus any other surveying tool that we can use to improve data collection in the field. Simple things that we can support and maintain and understand within our shop as we start to build towards more complex tools. We are standardizing sort of our data sets, learning SQL, learning how to do these, additional scripts that some analysts may come to the table with, and other analysts who have been in policing for 15, 20 years is not where they started. And so just bridging that gap, making sure that as we grow to use more advanced tools, that we're also understanding what that means in terms of the data analytics. We're not too far from the data in using new tools.
Gotcha. All right, I want to shift just slightly here, because at the beginning we were talking about growing data literacy and how it could help the organization. I want to talk about how it could transform potentially the individual a little bit. So, how can upskilling your data skill sets transform perhaps your career or your ability to have an impact on the organization?
Well, firstly, I'll say I've built a career on data use here at the police department. My father was an officer. I wanted to be in government service. I wanted to be in law enforcement, but would not have made a good officer. And so I think that the use of data and understanding, possessing any skill set that is valued within an organization can certainly propel your career forward, can make you a leader in a space that is valued. When it comes to analytic teams, really still continuing to focus on what's going to get those experienced players up to the next level, setting your teams, building strategically so that everyone's not looking at data the same way. You want that variance in skill. You want to be able to build career ladders for your analysts within your organization to keep them. It's important. But when I think of upskilling today, I think of upskilling across the organization. I think about teaching officers how to use the data that we're making them available and finding opportunities that make sense to do so. So day-long trainings for data is not everyone's cup of tea, right? So if we are going to launch a dashboard, we are going to release a video, a 3-minute clip on how to use that dashboard, and we're going to discuss how that data should be applied and where there may be limitations. So it's a both and upskilling in terms of growing the agency on how to learn about data while you're releasing these tools for use. And it's been pretty successful for us here.
Well, that is great. I'm happy to hear it has been so successful. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.
Here to talk about all things data and data literacy is Stephanie Garland, who is the Director of Data Literacy for my home state, the state of Maryland. Stephanie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, so data literacy, this is a big topic and a topic that is becoming even more important, and it already was very, very important with the emergence of things like AI and tooling and all of that stuff. And understanding how data works and is part of that is incredibly important. So, lay the groundwork for me a little bit. What is data literacy and what does it look like within the state of Maryland?
Well, to kind of start from the beginning of how the data literacy program was kind of born, Governor Moore has goals of making Maryland safer, more affordable, more competitive, and the Office of Enterprise Data, which is where I'm a part of, looked at those goals and said the only way we can do that is by improving, data-driven decision making. We need that to improve to really hit those targets. So things need to happen. People need to have access to the right data. They need to be able to we need to standardize data practices, and we need to have tools, skills and tools to analyze that data. And they need to be able to prioritize data driven insights. And that really is the foundation of where the data literacy program was born from. And we have three core pillars that we kind of look at when we talk about the data literacy program. And we have coined them the three E's, and that's education, engagement, and enablement. And it's really all three of them. It's a framework where really all three of them have to kind of work together in order for the program to succeed. And education, we've probably focused on most heavily up until now. And I would say that because the other two programs were really ramping up. And so I can talk about all three of those. Education is really our structured, kind of tangible ways of the state of Maryland employees kind of growing their data literacy skills. And that looks like we've had ADO steward courses for agency data officers. And we did that with GovLab. We had a 3-day in-person course, and then we had the remaining course was hybrid, and they were able to continue their courses online. We have curated industry certification courses. We have collaborative learning, hackathons. We'll have some structured compliance refresher courses for data management and data stewards. We also have a governor's executive course for executive learners that we're structuring a custom course. We have responsible AI for public professionals that we partnered with with Innovate US. And we partnered with DataCamp for upskilling because we thought that it just made sense. They have over 500 analytics and AI courses that are hands-on, and it made sense to partner with them. That would be for our upskilling courses. We're on the platform now, but for our skills training, that program will probably launch in January in the new year. And then for I want to say, I do want to say this. I think it's important that when having a program like this, you have the backing and the support of leadership. And so I had that. And 6 months into my program, they hired a Maryland learning architect. So I'm supported with her for my education part of the program. And now for engagement, which I'll talk about, I also am working with a community coordinator. So I think that's really important that they recognize the scale of the program. And I'm provided with 2 people to assist in the growth of the program. So I do have a community coordinator that I work with. She helps me with engagement. Engagement is really about growing the community, and because training alone and just focus on the data does not create a data-driven culture. It's really about knitting a community together, uh, knitting a community together of people who are focused on it, and collaboration. So we do that we have a newsletter that's called The State of Data. And we mean the state of data in Maryland, by the way. And that newsletter has focused a lot on what are our agencies doing and how are our agencies using data. We also focus on themes where we might talk about visualization for the month and choosing right charts, that kind of thing. Other things that we do, we have lunch and learns where people are able to share tips and tricks and collaborate over lunch over on certain topics like analytics. We have the biggest thing that I'm very excited about is there are 3 communities of practice within the state. We are developing a platform that will allow all of the communities of practice to sit on one platform and cross collaborate. So we have a responsible AI community of practice, we have a data literacy community of practice, and we have our digital community of practice That's the name is Web Leads Community Practice, and we will each have our own platform, and we'll all be able to cross collaborate on that. So that's the biggest part of our engagement program. And, I really think it's really about collaborating and connecting and learning from each other and building that culture, really kind of starting to build that culture. And then the final part is enablement. I don't think enablement is really naturally intuitive. It's some people think of enablement as self-service. I've been trying to break that down and think about in my head what's the best way to explain it. But I think of it as kind of lowering the barrier and kind of making, not only making data accessible, but kind of making it frictionless for people to really find the data that they need. So we're doing that by launching a data academy. So our data academy website will be available in the next month. So before the end of November, the data academy site will be up. Within the data academy site, there'll be a resource hub that will contain templates for agencies, templates around data sharing. It might not be completely formed the way you want it to look, but it'll be enough to get you going. I'm like, this is what you need to do for data sharing. It will have an Office of Enterprise Data Glossary that we intend to be able to use statewide because we don't speak the same language, and we figured that out pretty quickly. And we what we want is it'll be a living document. We want consistent terminology, and that's really important. So we have terms from 8 different agencies. I've been working with my state chief privacy officer, with my director of data practices. We are all working together to look at this and say, how are we speaking, and what kind of, what kind of terminology should be in here, and how should we adjust the terminology that's currently in here, because we really want it to be something that people feel they've had part ownership in, and that is accessible. And that's the largest part of enablement. And really, that's the framework for us, for the data literacy program, of how we kind of make it work. And those pieces really are what makes the program kind of, and they really have to all be working together in order for it to kind of scale and grow.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Stephanie, that was so thorough, and I really appreciate you breaking it down for us, because I think sometimes people think data literacy, you go to one training and all of a sudden you're going to be ready to go. And I
Yeah.
think the way you explain that really articulates that this is a journey folks are going to be going on, and that there's different levels and different kind of paths that people can take within this, all leading to that end goal of just better data awareness, better use, as agencies are looking to take advantage of this. Where do you see some agencies, and this doesn't need to be specific to Maryland, but where do you see some agencies falling short when it comes to data literacy?
I wouldn't say that we have agencies falling short. So we've about 30, between 30 and 35, I think closer to 35 agencies that report to and to the governor. And there are various different sizes and different maturity levels. I I would describe it as, our goal, or the Office of Enterprise Data's mission is kind of to meet agencies where they are. And we do that in several different ways by um, setting, governance standards across the enterprise system. And that allows people to get access to the data that they need. And we talk about, we focus on transparency and like the open data platform, and talk about data quality. And in our data practices, we look at we're looking at innovative ways to assist agencies one thing that we've talked about this year, it's not currently, we haven't implemented it yet, but we're looking at a fellows program to assist agencies that might not have all of the assistance that they need in running some of the programs. And then we have operations programs that help to streamline certain processes. So I think all of these things are done to support agencies. We also do, for within management, we do an assessment. And so it's kind of like, where are you on the maturity scale versus some of the other agencies, and where are we overall as a state on our data maturity? All of that is in attempts to allow agencies to, some agencies to come up the maturity scale and kind of balance everybody, to balance out, I think. So it's really, I think it's really a support mechanism, while it's a supportive um, way, so agencies can continue to um, focus on their primary initiative.
Gotcha. All right. So you don't need to name names here unless you want to, but what are some tools or platforms that can help make data more accessible to folks that maybe aren't used to using data all the time?
I think that, um, well, we hope that, for instance, we hope in the Data Academy site that we will have, we're going to consider that a centralized hub. And we'll do that by having access to all of our um, all of our curated content. So for instance, within our education um, section, you'll be able to go there and connect with uh, Tyler Tech content, our Esri content, Data Camp content, all of that. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to name, you'll be able to connect to. It's not a secret that we work with any of them, but you'll be all of our content, all of our educational content will be accessible. It won't be housed there, but it'll be accessible in one location, which I think is important. I think, I don't think people want to have the cumbersome problem of going different places to look for different things. So it's, for me as a director and the creator of this program, I want to make Academy I want to make it a hub. I want to make it a central hub and easy for people to locate content. I want to make resources easy for people. Where are all the newsletters? They're there for you in engagement. What's available in the resource hub? We have templates available for you in the resource hub. We have a glossary available for you. So it's important that people feel like they have content that's accessible, that they have the right tools that they need, that they can, reach out to the community of platform. They can access our community of platform, that they know where, when the next data literacy community of practice meeting is happening. All of that should be available from the Data Academy site. That's what my goal is, to have that be there as well. And, we are, like I said, we have not done our skills. Our skills program is not up and running yet, but that is something that we plan on having in January, is, skills training. Where will you go to get training for upskilling? You'll have the option, not requirement, but you'll have the option of taking a individual skills assessment. Where are you on your data literacy journey, on your learning journey? This is where you are. This is where you want to go. And these are the courses that you can take to kind of get you there. And that we would like to have all available on the Data Academy site. If you're doing skills training, it would take you to the Data Camp platform from our site. So I want to make it as seamless as possible. Fingers crossed. We are working on that. We're working on this right now.
Wonderful. All right. Final question here for you, Stephanie. And I'm just curious from your experience and obviously leading a lot of these upskilling efforts, how have you seen it have an impact on folks' careers and maybe the agency or the state overall kind of data awareness? Where have you seen that impact play out?
Well, our program, we are just getting up and running. So for Maryland, I can't say that I've seen that impact yet. I will tell you that we are looking, we do measure what we're working on. So we will be measuring metrics, and we have to measure outcomes, right, of what we work on for everything, for all of our programs. That's requirement. So we want to see that there are improvements being made. But I have seen um, in other places, in my in previous programs that I've worked on, that you know there is improved decision making. You do see enhanced collaboration, and you can see people advance in their careers and move up in their careers. I would say I've seen that in my prior organization that I worked, where I worked. People, you see career advancement absolutely in programs for certificate, whether it's certifications or required training programs. That's absolutely visible from seeing from taking being a part of a data literacy program or upskilling program. And I think it's going to be easily visible within the state of Maryland. We plan on measuring um, skill acquisition, which is pre and post assessments. I think it's harder to measure how people do on the job, like that kind of thing. But I think career progression is probably an easier thing to see. And I'm hoping that we do see it. And I'm hoping that it's really that we'll be able to see the outcomes driven progression of it, that better data literacy skills will eventually lead to improved decision making, and that we'll see a more efficient um, government from group to group. We'll see more efficiency throughout the state.
I love that. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Joining us to talk about all things data is Joe Kirby, who is a data manager in the Office of Administration and the Office of Data and Analytics for the state of Missouri. Joe, thanks so much for being with us today.
So I'm happy to be here. So it's exciting to talk with you today.
Definitely. All right. So lay the groundwork for me a little bit because data is becoming even more important than it already was. And it was already like the gold standard for government agencies. But now with AI and other technologies coming into play, data is even more important than ever. So how does data literacy, what does it look like at your organization?
It's it, it's been a challenge for us at Missouri. With Missouri, we're really a federated state. We have a centralized IT, consolidated IT, but agencies have flexibility to do what they want. So we have a variety varying degrees of literacy across the state. And one of the things I've said for years is that agencies and people within programs have abdicated their responsibility for data to IT because IT would build all these systems and it would, they would just say, oh, the IT people know it. So the developers and these type of people actually knew more about the systems than the people that own the system. So they just let IT handle it. That doesn't work. And so our struggle now is to get people to understand the ownership of data, what their data is doing, the importance of data. Obviously, security is critical. In the state of Missouri, we have an amazing CISO, and their team does a fantastic job with security. So that's number one at forefront. But getting people to understand the value of the data, what they can do with it, and how they need to be sure and take care of their data and understand what they're doing with it. So we're in the process of trying to educate people. Education is a big portion of what we're needing to do. So it's all over the board, and it's just communication, education, and getting people to understand the data, especially in this world of AI, where people are accessing data more frequently.
Yeah. I think such a critical perspective. And I have been guilty of it myself, being like, someone else is taking care of this over there. But I really need to be an active participant. Where do you see, and this is not just your organization, but where do you see agencies falling short when it comes to data literacy? What do you think is missing for most folks?
I think it's just not really wanting to delve into it, not understanding the importance of data. Over in the past, it hasn't been as critical. We collected data for certain things and have done some reporting on it. So they just didn't take the time to really understand how important it is and what needs to be done with it. It was just kind of a side piece for what they're trying to do. And now, as we're moving, uh, that's changing. So getting people to understand what the importance is, where we need to go, how we need to be better with our data. Again, we have the tools, we have the technology. Uh, a big portion of it is the people. That's where our biggest security risks are. That's where our biggest holes in making things happen is people. So educating those people and lack of desire to delve into that has been a challenge with agencies because it is something new for a lot of people.
Yeah. For so long, it felt like we were just collecting data for collection
Mhm.
purposes. And now, if your data is not both properly stored and categorized, then you can't take advantage of things like AI because
Right.
bad data is going to produce bad results for your AI. And I think you're right. I think so, it's a big barometer for some folks to say, well, I want to use AI, but the data the data is
Yeah.
spitting out bad results. And so that really is an education curve that can be difficult to overcome.
Right. And AI has really driven that. And business analytics has as well, that people want to do AI on their data. If you look at a state's website, they'll have a lot of data out there. They'll have policies and procedures or uh, various versions of documents. And so the older versions aren't valid anymore, but they're still out there on the website so people can see historical stuff. Well, AI doesn't know the difference, especially since, website data, just PDFs out there or something. There isn't the metadata to say, hey, this is an archived piece. So we're finding when we start putting AI, when we start putting business intelligence to things, that they're finding the bad data. So within AI, you can get all those hallucinations, you can get all the bad responses from things. So it really brings to light the need for data literacy, data quality checks, and improving their systems.
So, for state and local governments, and even our federal friends who are experiencing things that you are with the challenges of, improving data literacy, a better understanding how and where data is going to be used, what are some strategies that they can employ to make some steps forward? We're not going to say it's going to be perfect, but what are some ways that agencies can move forward in their kind of data maturity, I guess I would say?
Well, it's a big part of it is dealing with the scope and what you can handle at a time and how can you improve everything. You're not going to fix everything at once. In the past, when data cataloging tools have come out, it's like, okay, we need to do an exercise of a data catalog. We need to catalog all our data. Those always fail because there's so much data out there and there isn't a reason behind cataloging the data. There's no why to help users get engaged in it. So at Missouri, we're shifting to kind of use case based data governance, data cataloging, data quality work. So what is an important piece of data that we have? Okay, now let's focus on that. Let's build out what type of reporting, what type of information do we need out of it, and track back to the source of, okay, let's start cataloging this data because we have a specific use. Do agencies want to share data or we need to put data out to the public? Let's catalog that more effectively. Then let's go back and start data quality work on it, and then get good data lineage on there from that use case. And then as we take them use case per use case, we'll eventually start building up a good quality data catalog. We'll start building out quality data products that we can do analytics on, that we're comfortable with, and that we can point AI to say, hey, look at this data. We understand what it's like. And we just got to continually work at that and know that it's not a data cataloging project. It's an evolution that's going to go on well after I retire, well after my grandchildren probably retire. It's going to be part of our day-to-day lives of ensuring that we have the data that we need, that we're collecting it properly. Application developers are going to start focusing more on data validation at the starting point. Hey, let's get the data in.
Mhm.
As soon as we get it in, let's make sure we have the appropriate data and we have it checked so bad data can't enter the system, and start looking at as best we can.
Gotcha. So I don't need you to name names here unless you want to, but what are some tools or platforms that you all have used or utilized that makes data more accessible to maybe non-data folks?
Well, I'll say our BI tools are a huge impact on that. The state of Missouri, we have Tableau Enterprise, and there's some Power BI here, and there's a lot of good BI tools out there. Uh, People look at that as something to report on data, create KPIs, and do this type of thing. But what we found with it as well is it helps us understand where our gaps are in our data. Because within Tableau, or any BI, any business intelligence tool of that nature, you can quickly analyze the data. You can see outliers very quickly. I was working with one HR department, and we had several people that had over 120 years of experience with the agency.
Well,
So we know that's not right. So there was some data entered wrong. So we can point those out quickly. Okay, now we can go back and fix that data. Or as we're looking at uh, certain bits of data, say we have zip codes or something that we're collecting, and we map those out. Well, these zip codes aren't in the standard set of US zip codes, so we know we've got data issues. So then we can go back and look at, okay, how are we collecting the zip code? Let's fix that. Um, let's find out where our data issues are. So I say all the time that people don't know what they want until they see it. So with visualization tools, you can show them something quickly, then that can open up discussions. That can open up questions. Okay, this was the first question we had, but now that really doesn't make sense. And it starts asking the kind of the 5 why type of things. Okay, why are we collecting this? What are we going to do with it? It expands conversation questions and gets people more engaged in their data. So that's a huge piece of what we're trying to do with it. Just showing people I'm a large transparency guy, with the state of Missouri. We have our sunshine law and FOIA request. I always say that um, if a news agency is doing a FOIA or a Sunshine Law request, they aren't doing it to do you any favors. They're doing it to find flaws, holes, problems. So let's start looking at our data more closely. Let's start sharing that data securely, of course, more effectively, so we can tell our story beforehand. So having those type of tools to look at that, asking ourselves the questions of, is this data good? Is it not good? How can we fix that? And we'll continually start improving processes.
I love that. All right, final question for you. And this one's a slightly different angle here. And that's kind of more on the individual standpoint. Because I know a lot of people, when they hear about things like data literacy or even using new technologies like AI, things like it can be a little bit overwhelming. So, from a upskilling or skill set perspective, how have you seen folks who have kind of leaned into this data? How has it transformed kind of their careers or their ability to kind of help the agency at large?
So when you can better analyze your data, you can look at your data. That just opens up so many more opportunities. You can automate a lot of things. We've had a report within our facilities management that the report, 500-page report, takes months and months to do it. With automation, we're now just now implementing a system where it's almost automatic and they can have it available on a monthly basis, saving thousands of hours of time. So just seeing those successes, knowing that, hey, you can improve your processes, you can save time to do other work that you haven't been doing because you've been massaging your data and trying to get your information out and continually working to educate. Within our cybersecurity piece, we have videos that we have people watch on just various cybersecurity issues, data literacy. We're going to be start moving that direction as well of, hey, here's little five 5-minute videos giving you little tidbits of information about how you can be better with your data and start gradually building up that knowledge base within our agency and our employees, and getting them to understand the value of it, and showing what what these tools and this work can do for you, and knowing that it's not going to replace jobs. Your job's not going to go away. Those people that were building those reports, they had many other things that they were not doing because they had to do that. Now they're freed up to do work and be more efficient and help the citizens of Missouri in different ways. There's plenty of work that we're not doing that we can be doing, and the more we automate and free up and use our data more effectively, the better we can help our citizens of Missouri.
Well, thanks so much, Joe. I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you. It's great chatting with you, and look forward to seeing how everybody moves forward with data.
Here to talk about all things data is Kylie Graves. Kylie is the Director of Data, Policy, and Communication for the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Kylie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, one of the things that I think is so fascinating as we're in this era of AI and everyone is talking about data again, it begs the question, how much do we actually know about data? And so, lay the groundwork for me a little bit. What does data literacy actually look like at your organization?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, we have, I have a team of, I guess, kind of to start the groundwork. Our commission is 29 people. And so the data policy and communications team it is me and 3 other people. And so we're kind of a small team. We do a lot of reports on how kids are doing across the state of Tennessee. We have a data dashboard that we keep up with kind of our indicators that we look at around children's well-being. And so we're the main ones, in our agency that are providing that information. When we're doing data, we're trying to, typically our consumers or the people who use our information are nonprofit partners. They are, students, they're legislators, things like that. And so they may not be the most familiar with data and how to read it and things like that. And so we try to make it as consumer friendly as possible, as kind of basic interactive, easy to understand, engaging, trying to make, data for people whose eyes glaze over when they see a spreadsheet. And so that's also helped translate to, with our team members who may not be as familiar with some of the intricacies of data and things like that. Because our aim is to put out a product that's really user friendly. It helps our team members also understand what we're putting out and therefore being able to convey it whenever they're, out in the field doing their work, leading their groups. And then our team is always available whenever we do any report releases or things like that. We'll have kind of office hours where we'll just run through, these are the main things we're seeing. If you're talking about this data point, you need to understand this technicality of it, or this is different than last year. And we'll kind of just run through all those things and give them the groundwork.
I love that. I also just like the concept of an office hours of like, I should understand this, but I don't. Can you help me? I think that's incredibly useful for people like me who don't have data in their title or their brain sometimes. So where are agencies, and this doesn't need to be specifically to your organization, where are agencies, do you think, falling short when it comes to increasing that data literacy for their teams?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is it can be really intimidating. I think also just time. I think a lot of people who work in the public sector or, nonprofit, that kind of thing, are doing lots of roles and doing lots of jobs. And the idea of sitting down and learning more about something that can seem really daunting, when you've got, a whole other stack of work to do is a big challenge. And so I think figuring out ways to maybe little bits at a time, incorporate it into, weekly meetings or, monthly, quarterly, however that structure is, just a little bit at a time. Ours, we've been more successful at, because we have these patterns of releases of reports coming out or things like that, incorporating little bits of education alongside those, because it's kind of a tangible, we can look at this data that's being publicized that we're focusing on and provide some back-end education around that. So I think that's been helpful. I think one of the things that we still struggle with is looking at kind of data around agency outcomes and things like that. It can be really difficult when you're an organization like we are that does a lot of education and advocacy and training to measure outcomes and be able to then say, we're an evidence-based or data-based group, and this is our outcome. It's really hard when you do, a training, you can do, we had this many attendees, or we had this pre and post test, or things like that that we've tried to capture. But, sometimes our attendees come back and say, hey, I just used that information you trained me on a year and a half ago. And so it can be hard to figure out how do you start to capture that. And so that's one of the things we've been working on quite a bit with our team, who is out doing educational opportunities, trainings, things like that, of what information would be beneficial for you to know for the next time. What kind of data do we need to be capturing? And so trying to make it as relevant to their work as possible helps them kind of also begin to see how it can incorporate into other things.
Gotcha. So if I'm an agency or a government small team, things like that, who's listening to this conversation and thinking, what Kylie's talking about makes sense. I want to bring some of these strategies to my workplace. What are some best practices or some strategies that you would recommend as agencies are looking to increase their data literacy?
I think starting, it obviously depends on the agency and what their work is and things like that. When we, a lot of the times when we're looking at data and what we're going to focus on, we're really looking at what's the challenge, what are we trying to address, what is our work focused around, and then what data do we need to look at to, one, understand, is the problem that we're perceiving actually showing up in the data? Is it actually there? And then what are some solutions? And so kind of example was we do some youth justice work, and we had some of our people who are monitoring facilities saying, hey, I'm seeing this trend of more and more female adolescents with simple assault charges. They're like, it's usually boys, but we're seeing this growing trend. Every time I go in, there's more and more female assault charges. And they're like, I think it's a problem. And so we were able to then go look at the arrest records and trends and talk to courts and see that, yes, we are seeing increased issues with young adolescent girls getting simple assault charges. And also then looking at, okay, it's also showing that a lot of the times those are domestic related. And so we're seeing this growing trend of domestic assaults. We also have one of the highest rates of teen girls in physically violent relationships in the state. And so kind of being able to say, hey, here's this issue. Okay, it's backed by data. Let's go see what our other options are and what are solutions. So that's been really helpful. Trying to think of other things, just looking at, so I think looking at, this is an issue that we're seeing, starting small. I think going from not really doing any data work to full all in is a little bit intimidating, but just what's a problem you're seeing? What's the work you're already in? What field are you in already? And what's some of the information? I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding what information is out there and what data is being captured. I think that is where we're a really valuable resource for the state, is we have a pretty good understanding of what is even available, what information's even out there. And so that's where a lot of people come to us, is just to say, hey, I'm looking for, the number of children who attended a pediatric visit in my zip code. And we can come back and say, like, okay, from our understanding, we don't have zip code, we can get you state, or hey, I would go to here. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is just understanding what is available if you're wanting to incorporate data into your work.
That makes a whole lot of sense. So what are some tools or platforms, and you don't need to name names here by any means, that you see as a way to perhaps make data more accessible to your teams?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, some of the standard Excel has been really helpful. We use that a ton. We've started our dashboard that's public facing. We host that on Infogram, which is a challenge. It's not the most friendly on the back end, but it's very, I don't want to say pretty, but you can make it colorful, you can make it interactive. And so we've had a lot of success at using a platform like that can make things, colorful and different fonts and interactive, has allowed us to engage people that might typically kind of glaze over if it's an Excel sheet, things like that. We also, a lot of times before we publish anything, we have a couple people on our team who are not familiar with data. They don't like it. They don't understand it. And so they kind of become our screeners sometimes of, I'll put something in front of her and say, hey, would you read this? And she says, no, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And so then we'll try and kind of, so we have a few people on our team who help us with that. I think AI is helpful. I will say I've sent messages to a lot of our team saying, hey, if you're using AI to interpret this, if you're running your numbers through it, double check it, because I've had so many times that I've put spreadsheets in to say, hey, can you just pull this for me? And it comes back incorrect. So we've had to put a lot of parameters of, hey, you can use it, but make sure you know how to check it, make sure you know how to follow through and double check the information, because we've had a lot of errors come through with that. But those are a few of the things.
No, that's perfect. And so my final question here for you today, and this one is slightly different. When it comes to data and data skills, I think sometimes people can get a little overwhelmed. How can upskilling your data skill set, how have you seen it maybe transform people's career trajectories or the agency overall?
I think that it's just a really helpful component of your work. I think, for example, like I said, we have a lot of people in our field who are doing trainings, educational opportunities, that kind of thing. So a good portion of our staff. And so one of our team members was, had said, hey, I want to get more into data. I want to understand how this can inform my work. And so she looked at the number of kids in her community who were entering foster care and discovered that she had one of the highest rates of kids entering foster care in the community. And then she kind of started to dive in and say, well, we're a pretty small town. Why is this happening? And found that it was mostly, so we did some records requests. We got information from our children's services, that it was substance use removals, and that a lot of parents were losing their children due to substance use. And so then she said, hey, I want to bring together partners. I want to bring together the recovery community. Let's figure out if we can address this. She lives in an area that was hit pretty hard by the opioid epidemic. And so brought together trainings around, how to partner with parents, recovery process, that kind of thing. And then has now been able to, start to track that over the next few years and see, are we making progress? And that has kind of allowed her to have kind of a tangible outcome to her work. It's really rewarding for her to kind of see that. So I think that's been an example and kind of like I said, of just starting small, picking one thing and saying, let's tackle this and let's see what's available there.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Kylie, for sharing your insights with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great.
Agencies today need fast, reliable, secure access to their data, but their data infrastructure often lets them down. It's too inflexible to handle the explosion of data generated by video surveillance, the Internet of Things, and, well, a whole host of other sources. And it creates silos that hinder data retrieval and analysis. When time is of the essence, say when first responders are being deployed during an emergency, agencies can't wait for their data systems to catch up. My colleague Candace Thorson sat down with Pure Storage's Jim Weaver to understand the data modernization opportunity for agencies and how employees can get there. Here's that conversation.
I would start off by saying state and local agencies urgently need a new approach to data storage because their current legacy systems are facing multiple compounding challenges that hinder their ability to effectively serve the public. And so when we think about some of those key challenges, first and foremost, everything that's one of the big ones that's confronting every public sector IT leader is legacy system limitations. We know that most current storage platforms today are not meeting the need for fast, reliable, and secure access to exponentially expanding volumes of data. We can't go anywhere without looking at data from IoT devices, video surveillance, you just name it. It's a huge explosion of data that's occurring across the marketplace. And really, this is especially critical when you think about first responders and our public safety officials. So legacy systems are often fragmented across the multiple platforms. And so that slows down data retrieval and analysis, and that does pose risks in being able to provide time-sensitive emergencies. Moving from legacy system limitations, we have to address cybersecurity threats. And outdated technology increases the vulnerabilities that we have in relating to ransomware and cyber attacks. Threat actors can exploit that legacy code. Those disruptions sometimes can last up to 6 to 8 weeks across the board, depending upon the severity of the attack. And that does put essential public safety services and government services at risk to the constituents that you're servicing. We also know that agencies do require solutions that offer robust cyber resiliency and business continuity. And so features like ransomware detection and rapid recovery are key right now as we look to the future. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about budget concerns and budget constraints. With the current political climate being the way it is, there is a very, very big unknown right now across public sector as to what will funding streams look like. We know there's a number of state entities, as an example, that have pretty significant budget deficits that they're trying to address right now in the current fiscal year. So how do you go about prioritizing funding investments and looking at manual complex requirements that are currently in place? That's increasing unnecessary operational costs. It's also basically allowing you not to repurpose your staff to areas that might be better well served in other parts of the IT domain. Scalability and flexibility is another key area here. Again, as we talked about the explosion of data, AI workloads, surveillance footage, constituent records, you name it, you need to have scalable cost and energy efficient solutions that can seamlessly expand or contract based upon the need, the systems that they're supporting, the business functions that they're supporting, so you can get to optimal performance capability. And then lastly, we have data accessibility and mobility. Staff, are often struggling to try to find data, especially when you have those siloed data storage systems that are in place. So this really does limit their ability to be responsive and directly impacts delivering services to constituents.
Those are a lot of challenges that you mentioned that agencies face. But just if we want to drill down a little bit into legacy tech. So when it comes specifically to data, right, how can agencies kind of break away from the limitations of legacy technology? What journey does that look like for them?
Sure. So, as you look away, you have to address several challenges, as we talked about: fragmented systems, poor scalability, mounting cybersecurity risks, and inefficient operations that do basically drain your limited resources. So the journey from these is challenging. So the challenges of legacy technology, as an example, as we said earlier, legacy systems are siloed. They're difficult for agencies to locate, share, and analyze data across the board, and especially when you're in time-sensitive emergencies. When we look at the outdated platforms that expose agencies to heightened risk from cyber threats, When you look at the manual processes and complex management requirements that continue to drive up costs, consume your IT staff, diverting resources away from mission critical applications. When you look at the lack of flexibility that are required by modern data workloads such as AI and analytics, but they're constrained by the legacy solutions that are in place. So really, you need to look at a multi-stage journey, if you will, and first and foremost is build the foundation. And I'm going to use an evil shun word, as we jokingly have called it over the past, but consolidation. And really the first step is around consolidation. And that is establishing a unified data platform that securely and reliably, supports all the workloads, whether it's on premise, whether you're in the cloud, or whether you have a hybrid cloud strategy. But the emphasis there is being placed on cost effectiveness, simplicity, and the ability to scale as needed. Then we have to look at the transformation, another one of those evil shun words, right? And that's how do you go about automating your workloads and adopting observability tools and AI ops for proactive monitoring and management. This starts to let your team shift their focus away from infrastructure focus and management to looking at more of the strategic outcomes. We like to say in Pure, we want you to be focused on your data, not on your infrastructure. When we think about cyber resiliency, again, implementing modern protection, ensure rapid recovery, immutable backups, ransomware detection. These are all important things right now as we look at the continuing and evolving threat landscape that's out there. Application modernization, as far as moving legacy apps into cloud or hybrid environments. Think about containers, virtualization, modern databases. All these things need agility and enabling seamless scaling across the board. So these are extremely important. And then when we look at finally data activation and innovation, it's unleashing the value of the data, right? At the end of the day, data is the most important asset that is in a data center. It's interesting when you ask that question of folks, sometimes data doesn't come out as the #1 response in that regard, but data is the most important asset that you have in a data center. So how do you unleash the value of that data? Discovery, transformation. When you think about AI and constituent services, and this is where delivering it through an enterprise data cloud model, which is governed autonomously and resilient by design, key components there for that data.
Thanks so much, Jim and Candace, for that deep dive into data modernization and its role in the ongoing data evolution. Thanks so much.
Here to talk about AI and data governance, we are joined by Terry Dorsey. Terry is Senior Data Architect and Evangelist at Denodo. Thanks so much for being here, Terry.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so lay the groundwork for me. Why is strong data governance so important to AI initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, I think strong data governance initiatives are important across the board. And AI, I think it just it exacerbates or makes that necessity, that more of a necessity. Before, I think in the past, there's been this idea of how do we actually get information to individuals and how they can consume. I think that the idea of having something automated doing that provides those similar, even more challenges, right? So if we can't really do it with humans, there's this challenge of doing it with non-humans. And this idea of autonomy and all these other things that are related with that, with those types of endeavors, makes the need for good governance even more and more critical.
All right, so how can organizations ensure that AI models are grounded in accurate, well-governed data? I mean, this seems like the question that every agency is struggling with.
Right. And I think a lot of it goes back to some of the rationale and reasons as to why, organizations have struggled with analytics themselves, right? There's this idea of what is a foundation and how do we actually make things available to people? The AI readiness aspect of it is very similar to the analytics readiness aspect of it. And we've struggled in those areas as well. I think what organizations need to do, in order to get their arms around this idea of AI readiness, is to understand the agile nature of it and the iterative nature of it. Before, with traditional approaches, we've always been able to have an idea of what we were actually going to do. There was total understanding. We create requirements, and we could develop and produce products towards that. But in this age of AI, and if you liken it to this idea that you want to broaden your consumption to people that are further out in your organization, AI being one of them, there's this idea of being able to make information available for innovative concerns or things where you don't actually know what the target answer is. And when you do AI, these types of AI projects, and even traditional through to generative AI, it's kind of like you're in this space of unknown and creativity, right? And so this ability to be able to iterate and change your idea of what information is becomes very powerful in that space. And a lot of the ways that we've done to approach making information available really doesn't facilitate that. And so in my opinion, this idea of AI readiness is not only to be able to identify information that has to be deployed within your enterprise, but also this idea of doing it in a way where you can iterate and you can explore. In my experience with doing an AI project, that's exactly what happened. You would start with this idea of what information was, how it was prepared, or whether it was ready. And then you would go through your modeling or algorithm or testing, and you would realize that maybe you wanted something else, or maybe you needed something else, or maybe you had to change your direction. And the brittle approaches in the past do not support that. So in my estimation, this idea of AI readiness is being able to basically turn on a dime, to be able to innovate at speed in order to facilitate, keeping these types of projects going in a healthy or natural manner.
Great. Well, Terry, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights here today.
Thank you. It was really, really good to be here. Thank you.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. I want to thank our 6 wonderful speakers for sharing their insights with us today. Just a quick reminder that we do have some great resources available for you to download, so make sure you check those out before you sign off. And like I said earlier, we will be sending you a link to the on-demand version of this training, so look for that in your inboxes tomorrow. But on behalf of GovLoop, Pure Storage, and Denodo, I hope you enjoyed today's session. And as always, we appreciate and value the work that you do, so thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at our next training. Bye.